Your video just came back.
I'm back. All right. Let's make sure everything's good. I'm gonna turn you guys up because here, somebody talk for me.
Mike.
There we go. Perfectly.
Mic check. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Cool. All right. Drowned is hosting. I still haven't come up with an intro. I need to write one down. I'm like, that's like the last thing on my mind, honestly. I feel so.
You need like a starting screen and then move into.
I need like a starting screen with like a chime in the background. Like.
Admittedly, I need a new one because the one I've had now is an overlay I've had like a year and a half or something.
I know. I need to hire our artist who's made this wonderful overlay to make us like a starting soon, and like I need like a little chime. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, so just to kind of like get inspiration. But yeah, anyways, this is the CarbuncleCast. I am Hylia Hart after Leon Hart, Squall Leon Hart, and Tifa Lockhart. I actually put that together today, and I was like, perfect. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy X today, which I am currently playing Final Fantasy X. I'm at Mount Gagazet right now, and I'm like, I just got done beating the Ronzos. You know, when you have to have to do the single fight with Kamari, and you're
that fight where if you forget to use it can be a bit trickier.
I thought it was an okay fight. I was worried because I was like, oh, Kamari is not level.
I'm the sort of person who goes, I love this character. I'll definitely continue to use him.
Right.
Often with a lot of RPGs when I play them, is like I'll play up to a certain point, realise I've completely undeveloped the characters, and then just restart. And the second time, I'll just obsessively, compulsively do everything.
That's the opposite with me. So I start out really strong, where I'm like, I'm going to grind, I'm going to get so higher leveled, and then like as I progress through the game, I slowly stop doing that. So like, that's what I've been going with 10, but it's kind of impossible in 10 to do that because it gets very difficult. So I've had to like, I was at the Eternal Calm, I think, for 3 days, just grinding, trying to get my sphere grid. But yeah, so our oops, hold on. I just did something. Okay. Our topic today was picked by Drunk Gamerette. She and I kind of talked about this a couple weeks ago, and she was like, oh, I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to do like something about the religion in 10 and like just talk about it. And she was like, anything 10. I love 10. It's my favorite game. And hi, Craig. And she was very excited. So first, I just want to kind of, because we've all played 10, and I think we all have a very personal experience with it. So I'm going to not talk about my experience quite yet, but Vanessa, Go ahead.
I'll stop interrupting, actually.
Oh,
Good evening, Craig.
Go ahead and interrupt away. Vanessa, go ahead and talk about your experience with Final Fantasy X.
All right. Well, literally, it was my first Final Fantasy game that I ever played. My older sister's boyfriend at the time was playing it, and I just always sat and watched him play video games. Then one day he was like, do you want to play it? And then he let me have my own save file and everything, and I just went from there. I think I was like 10 years old at the time.
That's so sweet.
And Yuna was my favorite character. I always wanted to be Yuna, like drape my curtains around my arms and stuff and pretend I was her.
I was going to say, I remember us talking about that and you being like, I used to put my curtains around and do the dance and my mom would stare at me like I was possessed.
Yeah, dude. My mom was not a fan of that.
I could so see that. I bet I did that too. Yeah.
Dude, if you didn't dress up as your favorite Final Fantasy character when you were a kid and pretend you were them, I don't trust you.
I remember Go ahead, Drowned.
I mean, my first experience was I played the first one I played was like 15. I suspect I may have been a bit older than the pair of you when I first played 10. I still had it on release, but I was in my 20s at that point.
Oh my god, were you?
Yeah.
I forget how much older you are than me.
Yeah, you know.
What? Yeah. Okay, it was 2001. Do you guys want to know how old I was?
I was 21.
I was 6.
You were 6?
I was 6. And
creepy vibe.
I know, and I didn't play it until about, oh god. Okay, so I know I played 8 first. I played it, I think, when I was 13 or 14, and then I immediately played 10 after that. So it's been a while since I've played it. Well, actually, no, I'm playing it now. What am I talking about? But, Shadow, what's your experience with Final Fantasy X? Your personal everything?
As I just explained, I was already an old man when I started playing it. Right away, I connected with Auron because he was dark, mysterious, bitter, old. He loved booze. And that was like he hit all the check marks for me, and that's what hooked me in. So every Final Fantasy game had something that hooked me in. But at that time, when 10 came out on the PS2, I still had, and I still have it. I had to buy a second copy. The original Final Fantasy IX, the black label on the PS1, sealed. I never opened it. It was in my backlog because I was already working at that point, and like I started my career kind of early. So I just never got around to Final Fantasy IX at that point. And then 10 came out on the PS2, and I was like, why the hell would I play 9? I'm on the PS2 now. And it wasn't until maybe like 8 years ago that I finally got back and played 9. And I ended up buying a greatest hits version and played it on my PS3.
Nice.
Just because I didn't want to open the original. It had I even still look at some of my old PS1 backlog games that are still sealed, and it's just like, why did I let these, why didn't I build like some teenage childhood memories with these games? They're such amazing games. So yeah, 10 was awesome, loved it. And for me, it was really refreshing coming from 8.
Right.
Like completely different battle system. It was the first one on the PS2. And so yeah, Blitzball was a little weird at first, but then I got the hang of it. And the only thing that really stuck with me in the beginning parts of my memories of it, were just like, what a grind fest.
Yes.
And the last time I was grinding Final Fantasy was like Final Fantasy 4 and Final Fantasy 6. I didn't really do much crazy grinding after that, like during the game until like Ed game for most of the other games. But then 10 comes out, and it's like, holy crap, I gotta grind like every step of the way. Like I take 2 steps forward, now I'm grinding for a bunch of hours.
Right. It's definitely, and I'm realizing that now as I replay it. It's all grinding. It really is. It's a grind fest, like you said. It is. Drowned, what was your first experience with
10? I mean,
yeah.
I got it pretty much when it came out. In fact, I have a suspicion it might have been one of these ones where our local game shop actually kind of was willing to give you the game about a day early.
Oh.
But there was, which was kind of cool. It was me and like two like 3 other friends that all sort of we're all sort of big RPG fans and had it at the same time. So obviously, and we're all part of the same tabletop role playing group as well. So it was like every Friday getting together and basically going, it's like, yeah, we've got up to this bit, we've got up to the Thunder Plains, etc. And I mean, I'll still state that it took me a long time in that game until I actually had any appreciation for Blitzball. I was easily at Zanakin by the time I decided to even get willing to give it another try.
I hate
Blitzball.
Yep.
Right.
And I'm gonna say, and this was a comment I made on the Discord, was the fact that I have personally, I think that might be one of the worst tutorials they've ever put into a Final Fantasy.
Oh, it's horrible. It's so confusing.
It's just introduced in a way that's just like so off-putting to everyone.
It's horrible.
Anyone who's watching this or later watching this, who has actually got the victory scenes from that Blitzball match, respect.
No, for real.
I've never seen it apart from in watching someone's YouTube content or something. It's just like the match is horrible as well. It really introduces it in a terrible way. Cause it's like you've got the first, because obviously there's the bit on the ship where you've got to get the jet shot, which is kind of the key to try to win it. But then you can't use techniques until your characters hit level 3 in Blitzball.
Right.
So you then got to spend the first half of the match building Titus's level, and you've pretty much got a single shot to get the jet shot to work, and that's it.
Oh my god.
And then he gets replaced by Wacker for the last couple of minutes anyway.
Jesus. I didn't even go into it that much. I literally just did what I could to get through to the next part of the story. I've never touched it again, ever.
Yeah, and then of course all of Wacker's loot breaks are gatekeep behind it. So it's like, and if you actually then go into it, and then because there's the Ronso you can pick up, it's like, who is godly. It's just like, yep, because the entire key my strategy with having him on the team is just like, have him as the centre forward, just break through everything because he's got the stamina to do it, and just like, yep, let me just pass it out Titus and score a goal.
Oh my god, no. I couldn't even, I honestly have never touched it again, other than when I had to do it. I don't know about you guys. Have you had that experience as well?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people went out and scouted new players for the Aura, and I did not do that because I felt really sad letting any one of them go.
Really?
So
Aw.
yeah, it totally just screwed me because when you have to play so much blitzball just to get the is it the Mercury sigil? No, that's for Riku.
Remember which one? I know it's the it's Waka's. I'm sure it's Waka's one, but
It's for Waka. I can't remember which planet he's kind of associated with, but you have to play so much blitzball to get it. And I literally I liked the game before. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a pretty cool mini game. I didn't mind the music that was playing in the background, but after I played enough blitzball to get that stupid sigil for Waka's world champion, I cannot touch it ever again.
No.
I never tried it. I never tried it in 10.2. I know they changed it a little bit.
It's scarring.
In
It's like
10-2,
traumatizing.
Yeah.
The 10-2
Yeah,
version sucks.
In 10.2, I know it doesn't unlock until like the last chapter anyway. Because apparently at 10.2 the entirety of it takes place in the off season.
Oh Lord.
But it's like because in one of the things with Blitz was the fact in theory every player can become unsigned and you can sign them.
Right.
Because most of the other players are actually in the locker rooms, if I remember correctly. The ones that are part of teams are in the locker room. But in theory, you could get Nimruk, who was like the best goalkeeper, but rarely. They usually get unsigned then immediately signed again.
God, you'd have to put so many hours into the game just to do everything. Craig says that 10 was the third Final Fantasy game that I fully played after 7 and 8. For the first playthrough, it was my favorite games to play and probably one of my top 3 FF stories. Oh my gosh, an old follower has just come. Hello, Arby's. I miss you. Hello. So apart from our personal experiences in Blitzball, because we could talk about how much we hate Blitzball all day, literally all of the tweets and the responses I've gotten over Final Fantasy X have been, I love the game, but I fucking hate Blitzball. I agree. So
yeah, I can see most people reacting to it that way. Really.
Everyone's just like, oh, fuck Blitzball. Like, I tried, but I couldn't do it. You guys did way more than me because I just played it the one time. But I just wanted to talk about our favorite characters as well. There's a very memorable party in this game, I think. One of the most, at least for me. And they all have very good development. Or not very good, but decent development, I will say. And I just kind of wanted to go into the characters that we love and that kind of stand out the most for us. So personally, I don't know why, but I love Lulu. She is one of my favorites, even though she doesn't have much depth, and I really wish she had more. I think it's because everyone just says that I look like her in a way. If I had bangs, everyone's like, oh, you look so much like Lulu. And I'm like, really? I do. But I love her.
The belts.
Yes. Oh, God. I always wanted to cosplay her.
That's the amusing thing, the fact that from why you rarely mostly see Lulu rendered from the waist up is because the fact is basically because the costume they couldn't render it for most of the fact the dress is mostly made of belts. They weren't able to animate it for most of the cuts, most of the scenes.
I'm not surprised.
Fantastic.
It's an obnoxious amount of belts, but Lulu's my favorite, but also I absolutely love Titus, and I just love how he's a very different character. Different from the macho boys that we see. He's very sensitive, and I love him, but I'm not going to talk about my experience. So, Shadow, who's your favorite character in this game?
I just want to say Lulu is wifey. I remember I was 21 at the time this game came out. So it was basically, I went from Kistis from Final Fantasy VIII to Lulu, Final Fantasy X, and I was like, I just can't keep up with all these waifus now.
Boo boo and boobies.
and I'm a booty guy, I'm not really, too crazy about the top, but I don't know, the one eye covered and the Moogle doll and all the belts and she was just so
she's hot.
Edgy and and I was just like, girl, we could hang. Let's go do some graffiti or something together.
Let's go do some graffiti. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
She seemed like somebody that would go tagging with me back then.
Oh, hell yeah. Go Lulu. And Shadow, you said that your favorite was Auron. He was somebody that really stuck out to you.
Oh, 100%. I'm always after the dark, mysterious, Vincent from Final Fantasy VII, Auron from 10. I do want to say, because I've got a dark history, they've got a dark history, and so it makes things more relatable. And okay, so I didn't like kill a planet or anything like that, but you know, it's just like when you have someone who's like a character that's like got, you know, some serious trauma, or you know, like they've got a lot of weight on their shoulders. It helps when you also feel like, especially at a younger age, that you have like the weight of the world on your shoulders, and then you have this character and it's like, oh well, the way they're carrying themselves, like it sort of like makes me feel okay, where you know society may not understand as a young adult or whatever, like why, you know, like he's such a nice guy, but like why is he so like quiet and just like keeps to himself and always has these walls up, and it's like then I have these characters I can fall back on, you know, like all the ninja characters and
Right.
people like Orin. But I do want to say, I feel like, at least for me, Kingdom Hearts
What about it?
really helped. Hearts was basically like Final Fantasy X characters.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that helped sort of like add another layer of nostalgia for me with these characters, seeing them featured like face front in another game like shortly after Final Fantasy X.
Except I feel like their experience in the game is not as much. I didn't like how they were kind of like the kids on Destiny Island, like Waka and Titus.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
but
But like
you're
seeing
right.
them again so quickly, you know, like I just got done with 10, and it's like, well, you know, like the blues when a Final Fantasy game is over, and then you get into Kingdom Hearts, like, oh well, they're back, and it's like kind of like, you know, juices you up again really shortly after.
Right. No, I agree, and I just wish that they were like more like, because the 7 characters got so much like praise in that game, but they didn't.
Yeah, well,
You
for the
know.
longest time, the 7 characters were the definition of Final Fantasy
They still are.
to so many people.
They still are.
Yeah, and that like
Yeah.
freaks me out because there was so much Final Fantasy before 7, and like I don't know, like for me it's a little bit different. The face of Final Fantasy is a little different for me.
Oh right.
So it's always interesting to see that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean 10, I feel like it's like 7, 10, and then what would you think would be like the third most popular or well-known
Oh god.
Final Fantasy? I guess at this point I'd say maybe 15.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
Yeah,
it
it's
depends.
interesting.
Go
It's
ahead.
interesting looking from different points because it's like, I mean, at a certain point, it's generally regarded as being like 7, 10. 6 tends to be the one that ends up in a lot of high regard for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Hell
Certainly
yeah,
my-
6 and
certainly
4
my-
are my jam.
6 being my first one that I ever played. I mean, because I don't
Oh,
like
nice.
6.
It's a good
Yeah,
one.
6 and 7. 6, 7 not long after, and then 5 and 5 which I finished. 4 I never actually got round to finishing.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, back
Couldn't
into
get
it,
past the
man.
Dark Elf.
You
But
can
yeah.
get it like on every platform.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
we
on
have no
Steam.
excuse
It's the
anymore.
weird it's the weird remake version that isn't the original sprites, but it's like it's probably not gonna be awful, I suppose.
Right. Vanessa, who's your favorite character since this is a game you are very passionate about? You love this one. Huh?
Oh, Yuna, hands down.
Yuna! I knew it.
Favorite, like, the main female heroine. I just thought like that scene when you first encounter her in the Besaid Island temple, and she just like walks out of there, and she's like a summoner now, and like her dress was just so gorgeous. Like, you know, being 10 years old and seeing that, I was like, oh my god, she's so pretty. I want to be like her. And then she gets to summon all these cool like Aeons, and
Yeah.
like that shit was just dope. Like being able to summon monsters to
Yuna's
help.
way out of my league.
Oh, Yuna's like
Oh,
she
she's
could.
It's okay.
She's amazing. But something with Yuna. Okay, so her dress. Now that you mentioned that, so I love that dress. I love it, love it, love it. And I got it in Final Fantasy 14 for my character. Like I love that dress. Now that I'm replaying the game, I don't love it as much, and I think it's because I'm realizing what it actually is, and I'm like, what? So like, have you noticed that like the white part is just on the front of her? And like it's just like a thing on the front that's like tied with a belt. It bothers me now. I still love the dress.
It's essentially a kimono, isn't it?
Right, but it's like
Less of that,
half.
yeah.
It's like a weird looking kimono. And like at first I'm like, I don't remember it being that weird to me. But all of a sudden now that I'm replaying it, I'm like, it just is so weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm being weird about it, but it's
No,
still so pretty like in Final Fantasy 14 and like other renditions, but like for some reason I'm just like not feeling it this time. I don't know.
I hear you. It's definitely like a multi-piece outfit. Like you've got the white top, and then that purple skirt with like the folding
Yeah.
has to be its own piece. piece, and then you have the arms, and then you have the belt. Like, putting it together would be such a pain in the ass. Like, no wonder why she changed outfits in the second Final Fantasy X.
Right.
Like,
I mean, and then
not-
she's got like fucking like combat boots on under it.
Yeah, that when I was a kid, that always weirded me out. So I just like ignored that and then just focused on the rest of the dress.
It is a pretty dress, but for some reason, I don't know if it's just like the remaster has it like looking weirder, but I just don't remember it being that weird to me. I don't know. It's weirding me out just because it's like half of the front. It doesn't go on the back. It's just the front. I'm like, bitch, how do you keep that down? I guess the belt, but like whatever. And Drowned, who is your favorite character?
I think I'm gonna have to go with Kimari actually.
Really?
I mean, he doesn't. Given the fact
Kimari's
he doesn't even say anything until Operation Migen. Not that I'm saying that I haven't. Predators actually thinking about God regarding I'm set sooner recently, but no, he's the interesting sort of like the somewhat almost the odd one out in terms of the Guardians. He's very intense.
Yeah.
But the points when he does speak, it's always pretty much he's got a point as to what he's saying. He's not talking shit.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yep, we've got to stay strong, because of just stay strong for Yuna's sake.
Right.
And obviously he's got this very interesting backstory in terms of the fact he was cast. He was cast out. Obviously, he's cast out of the tribe, and apparently by Ronso standards is also a runt. When you see others, and he's actually and Kimari being tall. And then you meet Brandon Yankee, and he's not as tall as they are.
No, he's little.
That brilliant bit in the bar when it's like when, for the most part, apart from that bit where he goes for Tidus, he's pretty much just been under control. And then the bit in the bar when you meet those two and it's like actually starts a bar and brawl. It's like, yep, you're very much a stoic, very much kind of reserved, except for those points when you do encounter something that pushes you, and you're gonna chin someone in a bar. He's
like a gentle giant, like in a way.
Yeah, that's probably a decent way of putting him, really.
Right.
He gets a bit sidelined in the second one, but then again, half the characters that are party members in the first get sidelined in the second game, really.
Right, and then Brett is in our chat saying hornless, and does it mention why he's hornless? I never, or maybe I haven't got.
I think it gets broken because of one of the reasons as to why he left, I think.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's the thing, is the fact that, I mean, spoilers, obviously because Oren takes Yuna to him, or ends up, I can't remember the circumstance, but obviously Yuna ends up in Kimari's care, and that's basically the fact that there's that bond, and he's then forever her protector,
right?
Sort of thing.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Go ahead.
So I'm pretty sure it's when you get to Mount Gagazet. If you talk to all of the Ronsos, like all the NPC Ronsos, one of them tells you that either Biran or Yankee broke off Kimari's horn during a fight.
Okay, yeah, I guess I haven't. I literally just got to Mount Gagazet, so I guess I just.
And there's these bits occasionally, because obviously the way that Kimari develops as a character in the game in terms of statistically, a lot of people may not always use him. And there's certain points when, like, there's certainly two of the fights against Seymour where he has specific commands and comments that he'll make if you use him. But a lot of people probably don't do that because it's Kimari.
Yeah.
As much as I love the character, he's not necessarily he's the one party member is like, I'm not really going to use him a lot of the time. He's a blank slate.
Right, I use him more than I use Waka. Waka is he's funny, but he's just kind of an empty character to me. And also his fucking attacks suck. I don't know. Like maybe I just didn't level him correctly. But...
obviously because both Waka and Kimari are voiced by the same person. It's
is it?
And it's the same guy who voices Bender, which is also why, of course, I've got a soft spot for both characters because they're voiced by Bender.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his name's like Don or John.
No, it's John.
John
DiMaggio. That's it. It's John DiMaggio. And yeah, he's obviously also Marcus in Gears of War. But who cares about that?
All right. So, I mean, the last question that's kind of personal. before we kind of talk about like the religion part of the game that we were kind of looking into. But is it in our top 5? Like, is it our top 5 Final Fantasy game, or just game in general? For me, it's in my top 5 Final Fantasy games. And now that I'm replaying it, yes, I would say it's my top 5 game. I really like it. It's just like a good pacing. It's pretty straightforward. It's a good story. It's just a beautiful game. It's definitely, I don't know where in my top 5, but it's up in my top 5. So what about you, Vanessa?
Oh, it's number 1, like hands down.
Really?
Number 1.
Oh my gosh, Shadow,
Yeah.
what about you? Oh wait, no, go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I give a lot of credit to it because it got me into the whole series. So there's that.
Right.
But yeah, that's it.
All right. What about you, Shadow?
That's tough for me because I don't even know like what standards would make my top 5. Like as far as Final Fantasies that I've replayed, after 8, I haven't replayed any of the like I play them once and then that's it. They just got grindier and longer.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. Like I love them and they're so much bigger and that's part of why I can't really replay them. Whereas like Final Fantasies like 1 through 6 especially, like I have a hack 3DS, I've got like all these portable handhelds, my phone, and like all these ways where just like I'm constantly still playing older Final Fantasies for like the 100th time.
Right.
Like on the subway and such. And so I feel like those should technically be my top 5, like 1, 2, 4, 4, 6, and 7, or 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. And I feel like just because of playability, those will probably be my top because I've played them so much, and I just like I don't get bored of them.
Right.
But like if I was immortal, then yes, a lot of the newer Final Fantasies would get a lot more replay from me because then I would have unlimited time to just go back and keep replaying them.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, it's definitely a long one.
But it's definitely one of the best.
It is. It's really good.
I feel like top 5 is too restrictive. Final Fantasy in general is just such an amazing series. It's hard to always choose.
Right. Yeah, we definitely have our favorites and stuff. This one definitely is so memorable to me, though. I think it is for a lot of people. What about you, Drowned?
Yeah, it's easily within the top 5. One easily within my top 5 of the series.
Oh yeah.
Thinking is like the other one's been 12. I was only thinking top 5, and I was thinking of not sure what the 5th one was, but yeah, like 12, 10, 7, 6, and one other one that I've really not decided upon.
I know, it depends on the day,
5.
too. Like, I feel like it changes on the day what my favorites are. Like, today, after beating 8, it's not a favorite of mine anymore. Because I'm really frustrated.
It's not, 8 I like. I don't think I'd consider it within my favorites. I don't dislike the game. I certainly enjoyed it, but
right.
Yeah.
It's not
I think
super
I'm leaning
memorable.
more towards 5 these days.
Ooh.
And a lot of people... obviously no one's going to ever say, what's your favourite Final Fantasy? 13. Get out. Just leave.
I love 13!
It's weird because there's a comparison between 13 and 10 in that both are actually quite highly linear. It's just the fact that 13, the way it handles that linearity is the difference. Is like with 10, it's like, yeah, a lot of that actually is quite linear. It's effectively you're going down corridors for a lot of it, but obviously there's people, there's events, there's things that are happening, whereas 13 there's very, very little outside of it.
Right.
I'm not going to rant about 13. I don't dislike 13, but it's not within my personal favourites of the series.
Right. No, that's definitely that's what I hear a lot.
10 is an interesting one because it's obviously it was the first of the PlayStation 2 era, which obviously also, there was a massive expansion because of that in terms of graphics. It's the first one that has any voice acting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the voice direction within the game, it possibly does maybe need a bit more work. Certainly, the quality of some of that voice acting is not fantastic. Stay away from the summoner.
Oh, I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
You heathen!
Yeah. Yeah, that line, as well as, well, I mean, there's the infamous scene, but I think we may end up discussing that scene later.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good one.
Scene.
So let's go into kind of the religion.
Yes,
so we
Yeah.
not in this game. Oh God, it's such a expansive story, and definitely like after playing 8, right now I just finished 8 and I'm playing 10, and I feel like 8's story was just like meh. It was all right, I guess, but it was not nearly as expansive as Final Fantasy 10. Definitely a huge twist,
Scene at the end.
turns. Yeah.
Scene just before you leave Luca, Shadow.
Oh yeah, it's like
That scene.
Yeah, and they have so many more CGI scenes. I feel like I was constantly getting hit with CGI scenes. But anyways, so Vanessa, do you want to explain kind of like a little bit about Sin and just like our main antagonist here that is just
That's one of the things that I say is the fact it's weird in the fact that 10 doesn't in certain ways have an actual very specific antagonist.
No. Sin's
Sin's more of a force of nature. I mean, Yu Yevon is, as you discover throughout the game, is basically, well, it's actually a mindless thing. The closest, really, and even Seymour is mostly a side character, a side antagonist, more than anything, who's trying to take advantage of things. I mean, the closest really was either going with the whole cycle itself, or Yunalesca, who you meet once.
Right. There's a lot of evil forces, and then there's like this big thing that we have to defeat, which is Sin. But I mean, again, like there's so many different parts of it that it's so much. But I mean, Vanessa, I'll have you go ahead since this is your topic today. So.
So with Sin, I feel like relating to real life, you kind of think that you have this one enemy, but then as you go further along, you realize, oh shit, I actually have a lot of people I need to look out for.
Right.
I don't know, it's kind of dark. So anyways, on to our turtle whale monster guy. So
Truly.
you know, right? I wonder if you take because we know that Yu Yevon, when you defeat Sin, Yu Yevon possesses the Aeon that defeated him and uses that Aeon to rebuild Sin. So I wonder if Sin looks different each and every time it comes back. But
Drowned, I think I meant you were talking about that one time with me. Or was it Lieutenant? I can't remember, but somebody was saying.
It wasn't me.
No, okay.
I was saying no. There was something. I don't know if you'll go on. So, there was the thing I mentioned in I posted on the Google document.
Because I know that Lieutenant kind of mentioned like how Sin is different with each Aeon. Like he was mentioning the Blitzball thing. I think it was Lieutenant, and he was saying like, oh, I bet you that Sin didn't attack Luca because Jack was Sin and he liked Blitzball so much. But he's like, I wonder why no other Sins attacked Luca. Anyways, that was just kind of a thought leading to that. But go on, Vanessa. We're going to be going in and out a lot.
No, it's okay. This is fun. I enjoy hearing these other opinions on it too. So I think that Sin didn't attack Luca because I know that in some of the guides or some of the dialogue, it talks about how Yu Yevon says you can use certain machina and you can't use other machina. Luca, it's a huge, it's a very large, the second largest city in Spira. Mm-hmm. And then you have the fact that they use machina for the Blitzball Stadium and stuff. But I know that Lulu, I think when you get to Luca, Titus questions this, I thought machina was bad. And I think Lulu says, oh, Yu Yevon decides which is okay and which isn't.
Yeah.
And then that's probably why he doesn't, none of the past Sins attacked Luca.
Yeah, it's
also.
And that kind of goes into the religion. So, if I'm getting this correctly, again, and Drown, feel free to correct me because you know a lot about this story, way more than I do. And I've played this story and I've known it my whole life, but it's just such a big story. So anyone feel free to jump in. But it feels like, so Sin is here because they use Machina, and Machina is bad.
I mean, well, that's the proposed idea.
Right.
Obviously, what the Church of Yevon basically teaches, it's here is Sin is basically a manifestation of the punishment for using Machina, which destroyed Zanuck 1,000 years ago. Even though, obviously, that's where Sin came from, and the fact is, actually, it was used against Bavel, which is now where the church is based out of. Mm-hmm. There's a slight irony to that, but
right.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting the fact that Sin is obviously actually outside of their control completely. It's interesting. I think in certain ways there's just gaps that they don't really consider in terms of the point that, like, Sin clearly, why hasn't it attacked Luca? Why hasn't it attacked Bevel?
Right.
These things, yeah.
And what makes Machina good and what makes it bad? You know.
I always thought the whole Bevel thing was because it was so like hidden. You know, like all the tech was like underground.
Yeah, that could be it. Because I never really thought about Bevel much. Not really. But Luca, yeah, Luca's right there in front of you, so it's easy to attack. But
Didn't Luca have a good defense or a good weapon, and didn't they always like repair too? It's been a while since I've played.
I don't know. I can't remember that. I remember just Lulu saying like, because even Titus was like, why hasn't he attacked this place? We just went through Kilika, and Kilika was completely destroyed, and it wasn't even nearly as big as this. And she was just saying like, oh, but Blitzball makes people happy, and like the Machina we use for Blitzball is okay. And I kind of also didn't get that. How
I think it's just there's bits of the story that are like, yeah, we haven't thought about this and glossed over it accidentally. It's just like there's bits like, because obviously, as I was saying, it's like the Church of Yevon has absolutely no. Yeah, Sin is just this thing that turns up, destroys things, and then leaves again.
And like I kind of like it's hard to not compare this to like our own religions and our real world. So like I think a lot of like Sin is kind of like the devil in Christianity terms. I don't know about Judaism or like Islam very much, but or any other religion. But like I kind of see that's the devil, even though the devil doesn't full right attack us, even though some people think they do. It does if you're a believer. If you know what I mean. God, it's hard to put this into terms. But
I am.
In terms of the idea of it, in terms of how the devil is represented in certain aspects of Christianity, it's basically the devil is consistently there.
Yeah.
Off basically trying to tempt you into doing something, rather than it being, it's your own actions that then lead you to damning yourself.
Right, rather than just a force that literally destroys everything.
Sneaky little ninja.
Yeah. Remember we were talking, and I think you compared Sin to like natural disasters as well.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. So like I kind of see Sin as like a natural disaster, and like you know how like when natural disasters happen, some people are like, it's God telling us because the gays are here, like stupid shit like that, you know, just like okay, no, like that's not why.
Or even ancient cultures, you know, like floods were happening because the sun god was angry, and we've got, you know, drought because, you know, we didn't make enough human sacrifices for the moon god.
Yeah, that too. That's a good point. And like, it's almost like Square took these like irrational thoughts about natural disasters and was like actually put it into a form of something that is a natural disaster, or in this case, not natural, but.
I think there's definitely an influence there in terms of that. I think yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that, especially because he's like a bulldozer. He just comes and he destroys. But yeah. So and then then on our notes it says that we kind of talk about the summoner. So Vanessa, would you like to explain the summoners a little bit and their role with Sin?
Okay, but summoners are Jesus.
Oh yeah, I put summoners are Jesus. We'll explain that later. Let's explain the summoners first. And then
I mean, like you're not wrong there.
Yeah.
So summoners basically like they're people who go through extensive training, and when they acquire their first Aeon, they become summoners and then start their pilgrimage or journey to obtain their final Aeon and use that final Aeon to defeat Sin. I think where was it? Okay, if you have the patience to listen and talk to Mation, that scholar you run into every now and then, I don't know if it's in if it's in 10 or 10.2, but he kind of explains like a lot of the history between Xanarkin and Bavel. So basically a lot of like when Xanarkin and Bavel went to war, like Bavel was using their Machina, and that's why Yevon hates Machina, because he was the leader of Xanarkin and all he had were his like the strongest line of defense he had were his summoners. So after Yevon created Sin and used that to kind of terrorize Spira, people kind of reverted back from wanting to use technology, and they went back to practicing things like the summoner's arts to go on and defeat.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense because, yeah, the summoners. And then it's weird because the summoners are like a Jesus figure to me, and anybody chime in at any point. But to me, like, I see Yuna and, like, these other summoners, even though Jesus was a predetermined one person, the summoners kind of have to fight to be the Jesus of the world and, like, sacrifice themselves from literally sin. And that was hard to avoid for me. Like, okay, obviously, yeah, go ahead.
Obviously, there's the difference in terms of the point, because as far as I'm aware, unless someone wants to correct me, I'm entirely wrong on this point with Christianity. Jesus obviously does die for our sins, but wasn't aware that was going to happen to him. Whereas the summoners are aware, because obviously that's the big reveal when you rescue, well, attempt to go to home to try and rescue Yuna, and the big reveal that comes to Titus is the fact that, oh yeah, literally the end of her journey, she's going to die to basically for the final summoning.
Yeah.
And that's like, and the summoners are going on the pilgrimage, aware of this from the very beginning.
Right. And
which maybe explains why Donna's a bit of a bitch.
Yeah. Oh god. But it's just, yeah, it definitely, it's interesting. And the summoners are definitely like these like martyr characters where they're, you know, sacrificing.
And all the ones you meet have got distinct. But there's an interesting thing. Well, there's two things I actually put on the document to the pilgrimage. One, how come you never see anyone go to Besaid at all? Logically, if Besaid is the starting point, which some of them have to go there to visit that temple, you don't see anyone doing that.
Right.
You see the group leave that from there. Sure, I mean, obviously, maybe they've already been there or whatever. But the other thing is, the pilgrimage, the entire journey is one that's filled with danger. And the weird thing with it is the fact there's like, surely they've got actually no guarantee of success. If the entire cycle, which is basically the whole, you know, they go to Zanarkand, they then do the ritual that means to sin being renewed. But there's a high possibility, I mean, even when you get to the Calmlands, when you meet, when Waka and Lula are on about the previous summoner they took on a pilgrimage, who abandoned his journey and left at that point. And so it's clean, and obviously you've also got fiends and stuff like that, and the fact is that, like, there's already loads of stuff stacked against them in the fact that it's like, there's no guarantee of them ever getting to Zanarkand for it to happen in the first place. It just seems like that. I mean, really, obviously, it's not one of these things of the fact that if you start analysing a story too much, you kind of go, well, there's this massive gap in it. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing is the fact that surely eventually the cycle's just going to end because no one ever gets there for it to happen in the first place.
Right, yeah, like what happens if nobody gets there? Like, maybe there's been... and also another thing I wanted to point out with the summoners is, you know how like in Macalania, Yuna is like contemplating, like, should I abandon my pilgrimage? Should I keep going? And this is kind of like an internal struggle for her. So when the summoners leave their pilgrimage, when they're like, fuck this, I don't want to die, I want to live my life, they get excommunicated. Like, I always see like especially now that I'm playing it when I'm 25, they literally, it's like getting excommunicated from the church. If you're a pope or a priest and you decide you don't want to be a priest or a pope, you get excommunicated, or you used to. I don't think you do as much anymore. But like, look at the pope that just, like, what was his name? Benedict? No. Yes, Benedict, right? Was that his name?
Oh, I'm really bad with
Yes, it was Benedict. I think it was Benedict. Though not this one, but the one before that, like, just decided he didn't want to be pope anymore.
You mean Emperor Palpatine?
I keep meaning to watch. I keep meaning to watch the two popes actually.
So I went to it's actually a really good movie. Watch it. But I went to the Vatican.
Yeah, it's Bryson Hopkins, of course it is.
Right. I went to the Vatican last year, and they were talking about like the ex-pope, and they were like, "Oh, he's in that building over there. He's not allowed to leave." And literally out the window, you could see this Darth Vader looking ass building where he's just chilling, and he's never allowed to leave it. Like, it was just weird. I was literally in the Vatican here, and I'm like, what?
I mean, I'm not
peers out the window, man.
I'm not wanting to slight the Pope, the former Pope. There's a picture. It was on BBC News a while back. It was just like people that retired early from their job, and it like literally has got a picture of the Pope, and he looks like fucking Sid. He looks like fucking Palpatine.
Oh yeah, the Benedict. Like, yeah, he did. He did.
Let's not at all just make him look completely sinister.
Oh yeah.
What, he's a Dark Lord of the Sith as well, is he? Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, we're straying away from Final Fantasy, but I mean, I wonder
Yeah.
if that was happening to the summoners when they left their pilgrimage. Were they excommunicated in a small building that looked weird? Like, because they just kind of disappeared. They weren't really allowed to return to their regular life.
No, I think there was one. Sorry, I'm trying to find his name. Oh, I found it.
Oh.
It's Father Zook. So you run into him in the Calmlands, and
Mhm.
when you see him, you find out that he was actually a summoner, but he chose to end his pilgrimage before obtaining the final Aeon. But I don't know, he's referred to as Father Zook. So, and he like finds the party after you leave Bethel and lets you guys know, like, hey, you guys are kind of like on everyone's shit list.
Oh,
so
I did see that guy. Yeah.
So I feel like, I don't know, maybe there are certain like reasons that'll keep you from being excommunicated, because he's still clearly part of the church. Like they refer to him as Father Zook.
Yeah. I wonder if it's like.
It's interesting as to whether they end up becoming social prize. I mean, obviously there were other things with Eunuch because she tried to kill a maester.
Right.
That isn't generally going to go down well, I assume.
Right.
Yeah, why weren't you excommunicated for that?
But they all have. I mean, all of the summoners you meet all have kind of like distinct personality. Well, they're all quite different. They all have quite distinct personalities. Ignoring Belgiumine, because Belgiumine's her own thing.
Right.
Because she's obviously it's clear as it becomes revealed that she's an unsent and is hanging out in Remium Temple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, then I wonder about the Guardians. So, like, the Guardians, of course, are meant to protect the summoner. And then I agree with how many Yuna has. For when everyone gives her shit on having, like, how many does she have? I can't count on the top of my head, but she has a lot. And everyone has, like, one or two. But I'm like, what? If I was facing these monsters, I would want, like, 7 people, too, to follow me around as well. So I think they need to stop giving her shit.
I'd want at least one that deals with every specific enemy.
Exactly. Yes.
It's just me. I want one that. You can throw footballs at that flying thing. Go on, get it.
Yeah, because the other summoners are like, oh, she has so many guardians, and I'm like, bitch, you should have more. Like, no wonder why you haven't made your pilgrimage.
Can you throw football? Can you throw footballs at that insect? And are you also racist against Elbed?
Oh my god. Yeah.
Got the job.
We could talk about Waka in a second because I have some things to say about Waka, but yeah. So, anyways, Sin is kind of just this like apocalyptic blah blah blah, and I think we are diving into the story where we are realizing there is some plot holes, but like whatever, we love the story anyways. So then we have like kind of the Church of Yu Yevon, which we have Yu Yevon himself. If you would like to explain him, Vanessa.
Oh yeah.
Or or however we want to classify.
What did we call him in our notes? We wrote spider, crab, octopus, beetle-like thing.
Yeah, who wrote that?
I did cover him last week as well.
A little bit, yeah.
It's like, what the hell is this thing? Anyways, so Yu Yevon, back in the day, he was the leader of Zanarkand, like the high summoner or whatever. And when he realized that Zanarkand was going to lose the war, he decided to turn all his people into faith and make them sit there and dream Zanarkand for like the rest of their days. And then he also gathered some fireflies to create the first sin. And before he did that, he told his daughter Unalaska how to defeat him. And then Unalaska went and brought that information to Bethel. But then, Yu Yevon's like the big bad guy, and he actually lives in Sin and just has like, I guess he has like immortality because he just, whatever Aeon defeats him, he like possesses and uses it to rebuild that armor around his body, which probably is why he turns into that weird creature thing. He's no longer human because I don't know, like I just feel, well, I don't know. There are like some things in like different franchises where you just kind of like keep repossessing other stuff and you just like lose your physical form.
Yeah, he like lost his humanity and like all that.
Yeah, it never really explains it. It's just the fact you you beat Braska's final Aeon, you and summon all the Aeons and kill them, then you fight this tick thing and then get on. And then Tidus disappears and some clouds.
Right.
I mean, it never really explains it. It's just like going, and you can't lose the fight, as Doctor pointed out last week.
Right, I was gonna say Doctor said like this is not a threat, and I was like, oh, that's true. Like,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's. I mean, it carries on the tradition of a lot of at the end of Final Fantasies, where it's just like the very, very last fight is.
You
No, there's
can't
no
lose
challenge to this. You can't really lose.
If
Yeah.
you lose it, something wrong.
But it never really. It's like whether or not it's just continually. Oh, he's a mindless thing, just trapped in a cycle of trapped in his own cycle, I suppose, of just repeatedly doing summoning sin over and over again.
Right. Well,
It never really makes it clear exactly what, if at that point in time, Yu Yevon is actually sentient or not.
right. And then I wonder, so again, it's been forever since I beat it, and I'm still playing it now, and I haven't gotten quite to the part where they talk about Yu Yevon. But so Yu Yevon was human, and he kind of made himself God. He literally did. And then we are there to kill God. So Yuna has killed a god, and that is how powerful she is. But I just wanted to point that out. We love Yuna. She literally killed God. So Craig says that there's a scene with Yuna and Donna, and one of them says their choices in number of guardians are different, but she would not question any other person's decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember the scene, but yeah, it's almost yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of things in the game. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then Summer, you had some notes about like the Spira cycle and kind of like this like religious, not even religious, like the cycle.
I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
There was the one comparison I was making, but I'll get to that. It's interesting the fact that you kind of wonder how much like, I mean, because obviously because it seems to be that the Yevon is a figurehead and not really part of obviously the actual church.
Right.
And how much basically it is just like they're using it. The maesters are actually complicit in the entire thing, and basically it's like, well, we can basically just sit here and we can obviously just take control of things, and at which point they kind of like establish the church. How much they're aware. Micah clearly shows that he's aware of it, but it's like how much the rest of them are aware of things, and it's like, is he been there just the entire time, or is it just passed on, or are other people made aware of things?
Yeah.
And it's like how much it's kind of like, have they just gone, well, sin continually turns up, destroys civilization, and disappears for a bit, and then we have this period of 10 years where everything's peaceful.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder why 10 years, like it just takes that many years for him to regenerate another sin, or like is there like some prophecy that we're unaware of? I mean, again, we're digging too much into it, but like
Doesn't it actually state in the game the one Raska brought in was the longest one they'd had for a while or something?
Oh, so it's not always 10 years.
I may have maybe misremembering bits actually.
Okay. That's okay. So Shadow, do you have anything else to say about the religion aspect of all this? You've been quiet.
Yeah, religion's crazy.
It is.
Just be good to each other.
I know, and the story is crazy. Now that like we're talking about it and comparing, I'm like, damn, this is kind of a shit show. And it really is a shit show of like the story goes so many ways because this religion corrupts people. It corrupted Seymour. It corrupted that one bald guy. What's his name? I forgot.
Keenock.
Keenock, yes. It totally corrupted them. And like in everyone's face value, they were these like religious maesters that could do no wrong, but like behind the scenes, they were really fucked up. And that kind of it explains a lot of religion in the world as well, where we like see these like religious figures and they're so like peaceful to us, but then we find out they're doing really shady shit behind our backs. So I think Square Enix really did go into some religions and get a lot of inspiration. I don't know if you guys have.
That was the thing I was on about. Was the fact I kind of wonder, in certain respects, I might be completely off base, and in certain respects, I kind of wonder if a lot of it is the whole cycle of spirits, maybe potentially a reference to the Golden Path from the God Emperor of Dune, which is basically. I'm not sure if anyone else has read the books. I mean,
no,
I've not read all of them. But at the end of the third book, Leto becomes merged with a sandworm, and then by God Emperor of Dune, it's about 1,000 years later. And he's basically a tyrant, basically ruling over mankind, but he's purposeful in terms of why he's doing it, which is that he basically restricts technological development, restricts where they can live in terms of what planets they can live on, and it comes across the fact in certain respects is like, and the idea being that he basically sort of, because once he dies, humanity will obviously. It'll obviously spur technological development and like the exodus of them moving on to different planets, etc. And it kind of makes me think in terms of like Final Fantasy X. It's like, is the entire point that basically that Sin, obviously they're taught that Machina is wrong, and that when Sin is eventually destroyed, defeated once and for all, what it's going to do is it'll then inspire obviously the spirit humanity on Spira to basically, develop technology, move on, etc. It's kind of like, is it purposely keeping them locked in a certain cycle until it gets finally completely broken? Minimally, then it does get completely broken. Then they discover they've got a 1,000-year-old super weapon locked in LaBelle's basement.
Right. Yeah, and there's.
But that's beside my point. But it was just like it's like, is it purposeful? Because the idea of that eventually, when it is eventually broken, it'll cause them to actually move on, to actually inspire them to greater works.
Right, and I wonder why. I mean, no, maybe I shouldn't go into that. But I did want to talk about kind of the Al-Bhed. So the Al-Bhed are kind of seen as this like anti-religion group because they use Machina, but really they're not. They just kind of wanted to create their own life and to be together. It seemed like I don't know. I like the Al-Bhed, and then we have like Waka. Yeah, like
so,
they.
Oh god.
Can we get like the actual origin of how we ever get? Because I know obviously we get certain bits and pieces of the world history, like obviously, like clearly, obviously, where Sin came from, etc. I don't know if we ever truly get the origins of the Al-Bhed as to whether or not they're. Because my assumption is they're presumably like Machina using humans, like Machina using humans that.
It doesn't get into them much. So, like, Riku, I think when they get the airship, Riku mentions, like, we lived in an island and then Sin destroyed that island and we were scattered all over the place. And that's kind of the extent that I got. I don't know if they maybe go into it more. But the Al-Bhed are interesting. And it's kind of like, it's almost how the Christians see other religions and, like, or other people outside of their religion, at least Christians. I can speak on my own experience on how Christians are very hateful. Not all of them. This is not all Christians, but some Christian groups are very hateful towards like Muslim groups or Jewish groups or Hinduism or anything, honestly. It's kind of like the Al-Bhed or that outside group, and the majority Christianity will say the Yevon, the Church of Yevon kind of hates them because they're different.
You've definitely got the fact that I think that it's kind of like, yeah, don't mention Al-Bhed around Waka because he's a massive racist.
Right.
And it's sort of like, and obviously one of the things is the fact that obviously Waka overcomes this and becomes a better person by, I mean, it's maybe getting a bit too close to current political things, but
right.
Yeah, but it's kind of the interesting of the fact that Waka learning that obviously no, they're not actually abominations and heathens.
They're
and
just
the fact
like
they're just like everyone else,
yeah.
apart from their weird eyes.
Right.
But my assumption was, I mean, I don't want to go into things in terms of a spoiler for 6, but two of the characters are in a village where they are descended from the original magic users, and it kind of makes me think that are the Al-Bhed the descendants of the Machina users from Bevel?
I can see that. Yeah.
Ever go into
All
that,
right.
really?
So you wanted me to talk, so here's what I'll break it down. So basically, my take on religion, and this is all tied together, of Final Fantasy X, it like playing through that part of it and just like seeing the way religion was being depicted, it reminded me a lot of when I was playing Xenogears, which is probably my favorite Square Enix game ever. And that
is fantastic.
Xenogears is a huge reminder of Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is also like probably my favorite anime of all time. And a lot of this is like talks about religion, and there's like huge notes about religion in all of these works of fiction. And I got the impression, or I felt like at least the director of the game, or maybe Square Enix, were just trying to show like the frailty of humanity and like what people do with religion when facing something inevitable, like death.
Yeah.
And like religion's usefulness. So basically, in Final Fantasy X, you've got Yu Yu Hakusho over here, who like they were Zanarkand, the original, were at war with. We were just talking about this place.
Bevel?
Yeah, Bevel.
Yeah.
They were at war with Bevel, and they were losing, and I believe he was the leader of Xanakin, and before total annihilation, he decided to use the surviving members to become fireflies, I think. And then basically he created Sin as like an armor, but he gave Sin a mission, which was basically like, your job is to destroy all tech, all machina, and also any sort of like large cities to prevent the development of machina as sort of like a protection. And this was to protect Dreams Anarchin, which is what his goal really was, is to use the surviving members
Right.
of this place to keep a memory of it alive, to sort of preserve it forever. And then the religion of his formed basically like from like pieces of his teaching, and like the pro magic, anti machina. And my understanding about the Al Bhed, because I remember they had, when Final Fantasy X2 came out, there was also like supplemental books and stuff, like comics or something, and
Yeah.
it was there that they talked about there was a mechanic. His name was like Al or Alb or something like that, and he created this like race of humans who couldn't use any magic, but they were excellent, phenomenal with machina, or with tech. And so they were like combating like Xanarkin mages, and I don't know if it's like said explicitly or hinted that like maybe that could have been the catalyst for the Great Machina War. And so basically, the when the Yevon religion came out, that race, I forget their name, but it was so the mechanic's name was like Alb, and they were like Bedouin or something like that. The name of the race that he created, they were blamed when the Yevon religion came out. They were blamed basically for the creation of Sin, and
Okay.
they were like, it was like genocide. It was like a combination of the way like Muslims are persecuted,
Yeah,
but also
'cause-
like the Holocaust against the Jews.
Right.
And so they were basically cast out from society. They were like hunted down, executed, and they're surviving, whatever they're called, like Bedouin or whatever. They're surviving members of those were later renamed like a combination of their creator and them, and that's how you get Al Bhed.
I
So
did
they
not
were
know
like the
that.
bed part. Yeah, they were like the bed part, and their creator, the mechanic, was the Al part.
How did you know this?
Because I read up on the book when FFX2 came out.
Oh, okay. Because
And
I'm
like,
like, how did
that's when I found out like, oh, there's like a side book and supplement, and I'd already been prepped for like all this supplemental crap with Final Fantasy VII,
Right.
because they had like the mobile game, they had Dirge of Cerberus, Advent Children, all that. So like, I was already used to now like games having like add-on books and things like that if you want to get more tidbits of plot and story that aren't getting squeezed into the game. But yeah, so that's basically the Al Bhed. They're like the last surviving of the persecuted.
Man, you just like wrapped that up for us. Like literally, we were all like, I don't know really where they came from.
Yeah,
Like,
they
and you
were
were like,
falsely and that's the irony, and I feel like that's
Shout out who's gonna
intentional.
save the day.
well, I think they should have been a little bit more represented, because like you had like people like Waka, and I'm sure he was not the only one in Spear. I'm sure there was a lot like him that were very like racist towards him, because they were ignorant.
Yeah.
They didn't know who they were. They thought
Right,
that
and
they
they
were
were
the reason.
taught, by their priests
Right.
that these guys created sin, so they're evil and they're cast out and all this stuff. But meanwhile, it was them, Yevon, that created sin, like
Yeah.
their own god, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like their own god created the devil. It's like, basically it's like a Catholic blaming a Muslim for Satan. Meanwhile, he was a servant of God in Catholicism.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Because obviously I don't know how much of it is there's obfuscation in terms of the obviously all these things are to blame for it. I mean, this is a complete lie.
Yeah.
None of this is true at all. It's like, nope, it's actually just something that's basically was summoned 1,000 years ago to help win a war. And
Exactly.
basically,
And I feel like that part of the story was put in there to sort of introduce that kind of dialogue with players.
Mhm.
Like, number one, don't always believe everything you're told. Like always be skeptical and always like use your eyes and any kind of evidence you can find. But also like to sort of reflect on yourself, like everything that you believe, like how firm is that? How factual is that? And what are you willing to do for your beliefs? Are you willing to dehumanize? Are you willing to murder? Like all these like deep messages without just like throwing it in the gamer's face.
No, I
I felt
agree.
like that was brilliant.
And then that's another thing that like the party did, and actually Craig mentioned. He said, "I don't think people outside of the main playable cast ever thought about sin truly being defeated." And now that you said like this game really makes you think beyond kind of the norm or what you're
Yeah.
told, these these characters took a step back and were like, "Yo, we don't have to lose Luna,
Yeah, I mean,
Yuna."
that's the thing. I mean, up until the point where you actually basically meet Unalesca, it's not until Una basically says, "Fuck this. No, we're not doing this anymore." Up until that point, as far as you're aware, she's committed to the idea of sacrificing herself.
Right, and you can tell she had such struggle with it because she wanted to live, but then once she found out, she was like.
And then I think it's basically when you get the reveal regarding the fact that no, obviously this is how it actually is, and it's not defeating sin. You're just basically you're replacing the Aeon that's been used to summon it, and there's a spin-up period of 10 years.
Right, she ended the cycle. Yuna's a savior. She's
Yeah. She's
Hail Yuna.
She's a queen.
Yeah.
She's our lady and savior, or
Right.
our lady and savior.
Well, I have one more question for you guys, but does anybody else have anything to say about kind of I think we compared it very well to the religions in our real world, and really hit the nail on the head personally, because you guys hit every point that kind of I think, but I can't verbalize. So is there anything else you want to add to this kind of argument? No?
Yes, human beings be better to each other. Like that's the lesson we need to be learning from our video games. Like, dude, we're all in the same blue rock on this tiny little speck in the universe. Like, let's just play games together and be
right.
Yeah.
And then that's a funny thing because I'm a children's literature.
That Fortnite, I'm not playing that one.
Yeah, don't play that.
not people play Fortnite either. I'll celebrate with them. If they're happy about their new email
There's like a moth in this room that keeps flying through my eyes.
Oh man, I played it when it first came out, but we won't go into Fortnite. But I'm a children's literature scholar, I shall say, because I'm almost done with my master's degree. But pretty much we said that like children's books and like games also fall into this, are kind of like society builders. So like children's books, and I attribute video games to kind of like they attribute the lessons that we want society to change, like we want to change in society. So you see a lot of children's books nowadays coming out with like acceptance and diversity because we want our society to do that. But then we see video games also promoting this from a very long time ago, probably before a lot of children's books. So I think Final Fantasy X was a very good start to kind of like a societal change that we should see. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I agree with you, especially like in terms of racism. Like you encounter the Albed before you even know that everyone hates them, and then like they're there and they save you and they give you food.
Yeah.
Like so you kind of like have that takeaway message with you from the beginning of the game.
Right. Very much so.
And
So I have one last question. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to talk about how they knew the cycle was bullshit. That's why they were kidnapping summoners.
They did, yeah, and that's another thing. They were like, they were kidnapping summoners, but it ended up they were just trying to save them. They were trying to keep them.
Yeah.
So that's another.
Yeah,
thing.
I don't think it ever quite makes it clear as to why the Albed were kind of aware the summoner cycle was shit, unless of course they'd uncovered documentation that. So because obviously they do salvaging, because obviously that's what they're doing at the beginning is
right.
They're trying to find the airship.
That's why I wonder, like, if the, the original Albed, if they were like part of that like original Machina war, like, that misunderstanding or whatever, and if they've been around, for that time, or at least if they've passed down that knowledge, then they would know that the result of that war, did all this.
Right.
Because it's the question was like whether they knew or whether the reason they're kidnapping someone is because Sid's trying to protect his niece.
Yeah. So I have two more questions before we end because I forgot. Bobo Mojo has been in our chat and they asked us a question. How would you rank the villain in 10 versus other Final Fantasy games, but we actually just did a 2-part episode, 2 episodes over antagonists. I'm done with antagonists, but I will say that I think the idea of this antagonist that is in 10 is very creative and definitely a really good one, and I would rank it like among the top 5 and probably maybe the top 1 just because how intricate and like insane it is. I don't know about you guys. What do you think, Vanessa?
Wait, you Yevon? Are we ranked?
Or I guess like the
Seymour?
Sin, Seymour. I would say Sin, just kind of like what we've been talking about, and you Yevon, yeah.
Like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
What
about you, Sharon?
Honestly, I felt like it was such a good direction they took because this was like the next gen Final Fantasy, and so this felt like a next gen boss.
Yeah.
Or at least a next gen end game encounter system. You know, like with Jack and Seymour and Sin, and you know, like it felt very like fitting for the PS2, like the first Final Fantasy to come to PS2.
Yeah, it definitely was different.
Actually, I changed mine.
So go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh no, I changed mine to 2. I would rank all of them as 2 collectively. I averaged them out in my head for a second.
Well, then what's your number 1?
Oh, Sephiroth.
Oh, of course.
I've never seen that like the hots for him.
I did it. I thought you were gonna be like the judges from 12. like I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I can't think of. I'm so done with antagonists. We've talked about them so much. But, Drown, what about you? How did these antagonists rank for you?
Well, that was the thing I was on about earlier. I was stating that I don't really think that 10 has a firm, actual specific main villain that you're consistently going up. Well, I mean, Seymour's the closest you get to it, but even Seymour is kind of the more of a thorn in your side than anything.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I like the villains in terms of what they are. In terms of my scale of main villains, I suppose. I mean, Seymour's up there. He's not Sephiroth or Arden.
I think it's just cool that we don't have one big bad. We have like many that all play into kind of the scheme. It's interesting for sure for me.
Yeah.
So,
definitely more realistic for me.
Right. And then my last question is, what was your favorite moment, like your favorite scene in this game?
Are we going to discuss one particular scene?
Just like a quick, like.
No, yeah. I don't mean actually favorite scenes, but I mean that one scene when they leave Luca.
Oh, when they leave Luca. Okay.
When they're laughing.
Why? Why is
I mean,
that?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that's the favorite scene.
That's why. We were all going to end off with that.
I think many people kind of misjudge but it's just 2 people just laughing terribly. It's like, but the entire point of that scene is they're trying to actually force themselves.
I was actually weeping at that scene when I first played it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was weird.
I was laughing. I was laughing so hard.
It's kind of a victim of just poor voice direction, I think, is the fact there's an idea as to what they're trying to achieve in it. And then it's just like, the execution of it's not brilliant.
No, I mean, I like nostalgia lens here. I think it's cute. I was like, aw, like I get it. Like sometimes you just gotta laugh. Definitely. But Shadow, what about you? What's your favorite moment in this game? Like scene, whatever we want to call it.
Everything that wasn't grindy.
It is a grindy game.
You know what? The first like blitzball like cutscene in PS2 graphics.
In Xanarkand?
Seeing that for the first time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like being introduced to blitzball for the first time on the PS2, like this new hardware, new Final Fantasy, amazing graphics, and whoa, I'm floating in water. Like, holy crap, this is awesome.
Wow, yeah, I agree. That's a really cool. It was. I mean, it's hard because like Vanessa, I don't know how old you were, but I was only 6 and I played it when I was like 14. So I didn't really like know any better of graphics. So I'm sure for somebody who was in their 20s, this is like insane and like groundbreaking. But for me, I was like, all right, I've seen this before. Like, you know. So.
Yeah, it was like 15 times stronger than the PS1.
Yeah. Vanessa, what's your favorite moment in this game?
Oof. It's a tie between the dance, even though that was like a sad thing, the dance in Kilika. I thought that was really cool.
Breathtaking.
Dude, so pretty. Even though it's like it's supposed to be sad because all these people died, but it was just so like I like how it was done. Like she's walking on water, and then all of a sudden the water like lifts her up, and then you have all of the fireflies floating around. It's like, oh, this is pretty. And then definitely the scene in Lake Macalania after Bavel with Titus and Una, and then Suteki Dene plays in the background.
Ah, yeah.
That's one of my favorite too.
Um,
That's a good one.
those are definitely my favorite too. I remember watching the dancing scene recently, and I was like, wow, I don't remember this hitting quite the same when I was younger, because I think I realized the severity of it, how intense of a moment it was. She was literally sending the dead, but very beautiful, beautiful scene. That is one of my favorites, but also, God, the ending scene. I'm sorry, that ending scene is top tier. It's one of the best ones in the series. That ending scene is so good. It's hard. It's hard to think about.
Yeah, I try not to think about that. That broke me.
I know. And like the music, I still listen to the ending scene when I want to be sad. Isn't that weird? Like
Yeah. No, okay.
Because I'm like, I listen to it and I'm
yeah.
like, like so broody.
No, sometimes it's good to feel sad.
I know, it's such a beautiful score of music too. I don't know. It's so pretty. That they had so many CGI scenes in that, and I think they were all very well done. And
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and then Macalania, hell yeah. Except I was
Lulu and CGI.
Oh, Lulu. My heart goes out to
Like,
Lulu.
Dude,
Anybody
full
have
body shot.
Yeah,
what? Your whole body
Oh,
shot?
go-
Oh no, I was
Oh
just.
no, the full body shot in the Say where she's like yelling at Waka.
I love that. I'm like, you
She's
put
just
him
like-
in his place, and she's like,
That-
boobies up, fuck you, Waka. Like, she's lovely.
Best scene ever.
Except I'm always like, I always like look at her and I'm like, oh god, I feel like a nipple would slip out if I was wearing that. Like, it's just.
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah. They did a good job of covering up her nip slips.
I know, she's really good at holding that shit up.
She was wearing pasty.
She must have been. I mean, obviously she's not real, but like, my boobs would be falling out constantly, especially because she's like always moving. But
she does manage to keep a perfect figure during her pregnancy.
that's another thing.
I mean, I'll mention. I will actually. I'm sidetracked, but they're my favourite scenes in it. They're actually both centered around the same point as well. Really.
What?
There's one other bit. It's not even a favourite scene. There's one other bit I just like in terms of the voice direction. Very early on, when you, like at the very start of the game, that bit when Titus is walking up to the Blitzball arena, and you get the TV on the wall again, and basically the guy talking about how, oh yeah, when Jack disappeared, when we all got the news about Jack disappearing, it's just like, and I was up all night talking to my dad about favourite sporting moments. I just thought that bit's quite amusing.
Aw, yeah.
But there's two bits, the two favourite scenes actually. One of which is one that's actually quite hard to actually get. But the main one is that bit in the aftermath of Mihen when Kimari talks for the first time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, and obviously the chaos on the beach, and the fact that not knowing, and also Titus charging out into the sea to try and obviously confront his father.
Yeah. I forgot about Behind. Oh my gosh, that's an emotional scene for sure.
Yeah. But there's also the one you've got to work towards to get to set up to actually have happen is because obviously there's the two characters you meet throughout the game up until Mihen. You don't meet them again after that for reasons. But Luzu and Garter, who are on Besaid, who are part of the Crusaders, taking part of the operation, and there's two versions of the aftermath scene involving them. One of them where I've forgotten which is the older one and which is the younger one. I'm pretty sure Garter's the young.
Yeah, Garter's the younger
one.
But
the older guy surviving is the one you actually have to kind of do a bit more work to get that scene to happen. That one, I generally thought that was a far more emotional scene where he's basically like, his young protege has basically just died in the operation. He's like, fuck this, this is just a waste of life. Try to combat sin in this way is like absolute we're just basically cannon fodder to the cannon fodder. It's like, yeah, that's a really quite powerful emotional scene.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was something.
That part was so sad.
Yeah. There's a lot of sad scenes in this. There's some happy ones, but I feel like there's a lot of heart-clenching, gut-wrenching, like, sad scenes in this. Like, when Luna confronts the ghost of her past summoner, that was hard. Because that's... yeah, like, I just got to that part, and she's, like, seeing her, and she's like, I'm sorry I couldn't save you kind of thing, and it's like, oh my god, like, that's hard.
Like, that was rough too, but yeah, her past summoner wasn't having it.
No,
basically attacked you.
I know, yeah, she was like, fuck you, but that was another thing, like, she was like so angry after death, but like Luna was just like, I still love you, I'm so sorry, I wish I could have saved you, and it's just like, oh, like, it's so, this game is very, oh god, this is such a good game, you know, like,
oh, so good.
I know.
I want to play it again.
Oh yeah, do it. No, right now I'm like, oh god.
My backlog any favor.
It's such a grindy game. Like you said, Shadow, it's such a good game, but it's so grindy. I don't know how people can play it over and over again. This is my second playthrough, and I'm like, like it's just a lot. But that's all I can say. But any closing remarks before we do? We have a shout out, and then we have something special. So.
Yes, shout out to Doctor and Lieutenant.
Oh,
for sure.
They could not be here.
We love
today.
you, we miss you.
Yes. We will see them next week, hopefully. They had some family matters to attend to, but we love them. We wish they were here. They were very excited to talk about this too, so I think they were sad. They couldn't come because of some family issues. Well, not issues. They just had some things to go to. But
another shout out to you for coming through
and
participating in the.
Drowned?
Oh, Drowned, sorry. Yes. Thank you, Drowned, for being here. You have contributed so much. Yes.
It was lovely having you.
What, Shadow?
I said it was lovely having you.
Yes, it was. And we will probably be seeing you again. Yeah, we don't have a subject for next week yet to discuss.
I'll be very happy to be back on whenever you want. Really.
Oh yes, no, come every week. He always has so much knowledge, and even in the chat he's like typing stuff, and I'm like, oh, let's go over that. Like, so I'm always like, oh, thank God he's here to say it, you know. But
yeah, and you have an easy conversation voice too.
Yes, you do, and you're British, so it's like very soothing.
Yeah, but I can also do. All right, you. How's it going?
Oh yeah. Anyways, I do need to link the Discord to chat because Bobo is trying to find the link. The link is down below. It is under the Team Carbuncle. I will also post it here in a second. But
someone were to maybe set up a command to do it.
I know, I need to do that. I haven't gone back and done
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to also give a shout out to Bobo for giving us some cheers. Thank you so much. That was very sweet of you, and everyone who contributed in the conversation.
Bobo!
Yes, Bobo!
Yes. Thank you.
Bobo. Oh, thank you, Drunk. Yes, and thank you for everyone who came. Craig, thank you for contributing, and everyone who watched and just kind of sat back and listened. We love you. We appreciate you. Oh, wow, Bobo's giving us more. Thank you, Bobo. You are so sweet. We hope
Bobo!
Bobo!
Thank you, Bobo.
Yes, we don't have a topic yet for next week. Sometimes I give hints or just kind of say it, like, oh, we're going to go over this next week, but we have not discussed that yet. So
I do like Bobo's idea.
I love that idea, honestly. I was going to ask if someone wanted to do that soon.
What was it? I may have missed that.
It was
ranking Final Fantasy's romances.
Yeah, and I was like, yes.
Oh, there was the idea I was having earlier. Regarding 16, and then suddenly thought, actually, I don't know how that is in terms. Well, I was thinking of 16. I'm thinking it'd be fantastic if they did a same-sex relationship in the next game. I'm thinking, actually, I don't know what Japan's stance on homosexuality is.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Does anyone know? We'll go over that next week, maybe.
It seems to be something not to go. But yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it would be cool, but we don't know. I think the rest of the world, some of the world, would not really. I don't know. But that's sad. It's really disappointing. That's an issue. Anyways, so Vanessa had the idea that we all end off on laughing hysterically. Should we do it?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Ready?
When you're feeling down, you just gotta, make yourself.
All right, I will do that and end the stream as we are doing it. So are you ready? 1. I'm embarrassed. 2, 3. Go!